We're going to chat through the process that we, as the team, as many of you were involved in the wayfinding process for Hilo of developing the name and the visual identity suite. So just to kind of chat through the goals as we initiated this process, starting with the naming development. We really wanted to develop a name for the reuse system that was memorable, recognizable, and evokes the values of the system. And that was another part of our process that we went through and we'll share here, is developing and defining what those core values of the system are. We wanted the name to also just resonate with the Hilo audience and stakeholders and key partners, and support individuals in finding and engaging with the system. The next phase of our process was developing the visual identity suite. So that included a word mark, icon, colors, patterns, and textures that could be used on any physical assets and any marketing materials. And we also wanted to, as part of this, demonstrate any context that it would be used, such as on foodware, on bins, on sample marketing collateral, and create a really clear visual identity guide so that any designer or individual who is developing materials for the reuse system really understands how to make everything look and feel consistent. So that will help to underscore how to engage with the system. Again, that being like the primary goal of really helping people to identify and understand what to do when they come across the reuse system in Hilo. And the third phase is building out the marketing collateral. So we want that collateral to inform and inspire both partners, businesses, and individual people and members of the community who are engaging with the reuse system. You can go to the next slide. Oh, thank you, Autumn. This is just a top line view of the marketing timeline framework that we developed in order to help guide what we want to do when. So the initial element being the development of the brand and the name and the visual identity, as well as defining some go-to-market planning and messaging development. That's kind of the initial phase that we had targeted for 9 to 12 months from launch. The next phase we defined as momentum building. So beginning 6 months from launch, defining the go-to-market plan, developing content for owned channels, starting to develop the ad campaign for print and digital ads, having some presence at regional events, developing relationships and determining what kind of partner marketing we would want to do on the ground in Hilo. And we'll get into a little more details on where we are with that later in the presentation as well. And the third phase is the market rollout. So 3 months or so out from launch, thinking through the press release and earned media outreach, launching and initiating any types of advertising campaigns that were deemed effective in the strategy phase. And then all of the marketing material that could be, for example, distributed to businesses, any window signage, point of sale material, bin signage, etc. Next slide, please, Autumn. Thank you. So we're going to dive into what we've accomplished so far, starting with the naming. Our naming process, this sort of defines how we approached naming for Hilo. So we started by defining roles and understanding who on the team would be contributing ideas or providing input and feedback throughout the process, and those who wanted to be a decision maker and really engaged in all of the touch points throughout the process. We gathered input using a digital survey and meetings. We collected initial insights and preferences and ideas. We then created categories within which we would be brainstorming names. So both individually and as a team. So that was the categories we created were sort of values-based themes. So some examples of that would be like community as a theme, circularity, returnable, wellness, environmental accountability, etc. We also reviewed existing research that was done, outside of Perpetual, but was very relevant to the work that we're all doing. And we also reviewed regional market-based research and kind of went back through the notes from the workshops that had happened in person within the community to understand if there were any insights gleaned from those that would impact our process in naming here. From there, we generated ideas. So that was through mostly like digital means and a survey that everybody contributed naming ideas. And from there, we began to narrow down in meetings to determine which kind of were the top ideas that we wanted to incorporate into a survey and market research test. So we then developed that market insights on a few options to inform our final selection, and then decided on the final name based on all of the input above. And in thinking through what we wanted to see in a name, this is a helpful framework in terms of what the goals are for creating a name. We wanted it to be memorable, simple and distinct, easy to pronounce and spell, relevant to the context and the values of the reuse system, relevant to the audience and their preferences, and distinctive, so unique, especially in the regional context, so not sounding too similar to any other offering that we're aware of. We wanted it to be trademarkable and have positive connotations. We'd like for it to be adaptable and able to work within different formats, and culturally relevant, so really ensuring that it is positive in all cultures and regions of use. Thank you. So this is just some examples of naming concepts that were offered to the team in English. So we had some that were very straightforward and very geographically specific. We had others that were a little bit more high level, and all of these were considered as part of our process. And then we also had on the next slide a number of Hawaiian names, and I will pass it to Kule for the next few slides to chat through these.
Yeah, thanks, Alina. This was a really cool process. I think when it comes to Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture, it's important to the community or in the Hawaiian community to honor Hawaiian culture and language, but it's also worth noting that Hawaiian language is an official language of the state. And also local culture and community adaptability is really closely related to Hawaiian culture. So it's not just because it's the Aboriginal culture, but a lot of times using a Hawaiian word is also attractive and desirable to folks who are not ethnically Hawaiian. So that's just worth noting. But these are some of the terms that came up as potential Hawaiian words or names for the system. And a lot of these terms are circular or have to do with the environmental, like nurturing the environment and nurturing relationships with the environment, reuse, responsibility or environmental responsibility. These Hawaiian words relate to those concepts in one way or another. Next slide. But all of these words, two were identified as most prominent. And so we have ho'i, and then we had po'ai. Po'ai, it means circle, but there was a deep connotation or kind of hidden meaning or kauna within that word po'ai, because ai, it means to eat, like to eat food. So po'ai was a really attractive term and concept, and a lot of the community preferred that. But there was recently a food establishment that started to use po'ai really often in their product line, and we didn't want to be confused with any other works that's kind of happening elsewhere in Hawaii. So we chose ho'i, which also has a deep meaning. I'm gonna post or share this link in the chat. This is a beautiful kind of conservation document that has a lot to do with these ki ho'i ho'i kanawai, or natural edicts or laws of nature, and it's really a cultural um kind of like preservation, uh, as it relates to environmental preservation. It's kind of that kind of a document, but the closeness that Hoi has to that document is profound. But the term, it means to return. It's simply it means return. So hoi hoi keia means go put this back. If I'm telling a child, like, hey, take this pen and go put it back. So materially, it means or it relates to the action of returning the foodware to the system. So it's just that general concept of return, but it also signifies, I guess you could go to the next slide. It also signifies the ability for nature to return to the health and well-being of what it was. And then later on, we'll kind of go into the branding of the term and how the logo also incorporates this concept of return. But so our final name that we landed on was Ho'i. And then you can see that the third character in this word is an okina, and that's not the same as an apostrophe. This is kind of like a backwards apostrophe. And that was we went through a significant decision making just about this little guy at the top, this little character at the top. And it was a beautiful discussion that honors the specificity of the Hawaiian language. But yeah, just to share the process of how we got to the final name, which is Hoi. I'm gonna turn it back to Selena.
Thank you, Kule. So once we had kind of decided on the name, which was a very exciting moment, and one that we were all really looking forward to bringing into the visual identity development and kind of see how it would look as a logo and how we would bring it to life through iconography, etc. So that's kind of how we initiated phase 2 and the visual identity process. So that started with our need to identify a design partner to build out this graphical suite for us. So we spoke with a variety of different partners and found one who was wonderful, and we had a great experience working with him. And we developed the creative brief. We articulated kind of the brand strategy pieces of the mission and the vision and the core values, so that that was able to be infused and kind of guide him throughout the process of really understanding what we were trying to convey, so that he could translate that into visual elements. And you'll see in just a moment how that all came to life. And this just gives you a little bit of a sense of kind of all of the various sort of deliverables that we had with our designer as well. Another part of our kind of visual identity process was also defining the tagline. So we brainstormed and had a various kind of a large swath of different ideas that we were evaluating, and ultimately through both a digital market survey as well as team conversations, we landed on enjoy, return, repeat as the tagline. And this was an important thing for us to define early in the design process, because we wanted our designer to be able to kind of play around with that with icons, and also design the logo with and without the tagline underneath of it. And these are kind of initial sketches and concepts that were offered by our designer. And this just gives you a sense of kind of where we started in the process. We were playing around with the letter H, as Ho'i starts with H. And there were sort of various ideas and directions that Jared was moving in here. And from here, we worked as a team to define a smaller selection of icons and refine these options to then create a logo that we were excited about, and create a few logos actually that we wanted to test in market with a digital survey. So this is kind of the further refinement here. And again, you see some that have sort of an H type of direction, others that have local symbolism and items and topics within them. We had some that were more focused on the actual dishware, circularity. So you can kind of see those themes that I had mentioned that were coming through from the beginning. And ultimately, our first digital survey, we landed on these two options. So we had sort of a more circular version here and one that kind of had an outline of an H, and we thought, you know, sort of represented like an infinity symbol a little bit abstract on the top. So those were the two that we brought into our first survey. And ultimately, after two digital surveys and further refinement, we landed here, which is a logo that we were all, I think, really excited about. There's a few different things that make it special. In just a few slides, Kule is going to walk through some cultural significance, and additionally, I'll kind of chat through on some subsequent slides how this icon here on the left, to the left of the word, is able to be used as a kind of holistic mark, but also we saw opportunities, and Jared presented opportunities to sort of break it apart and create various patterns that really resonated with the team. So this is, as I'm sure you all will see in the final style guide, this is our color palette that we ultimately went with. So we have sort of this marine teal color. We have white and a tan beige and then an accent coral. So we'll show you a few examples of how this would be used. This is just for illustrative purposes only. This is not final artwork by any means, but here you can see how the logo comes together with the color palette, how the color palette could be used with sort of the background of the marine blue and the accents of the coral color. And then you can also see how this patterning here could be a really interesting part of wayfinding and brand development and icon creation. And as I was mentioning on the previous slide, this patterning is actually used by building various elements of the icon in the logo together. So each of these pieces, like if you sort of break off one of the side triangles, it creates the inner line of triangles, etc. So we thought that was really interesting, and presented a lot of opportunity to develop iconography that could help with directing people in various ways to understand what to do. And it also created an opportunity to sort of align with our tagline that we had ultimately created. So I think we'll see that on the next slide or subsequently. Yeah, so again, this is just an example, but another way that we would use iconography that is built out of various elements within the logo itself to kind of signify functions of the system as well. Awesome. I will pass it over to you, Kule.
Yes, mahalo. I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to share a little bit about the cultural significance of the logo. Um, I, I, some of these reflections may seem a little abstract if you don't have any contextual understanding of Hawaii or Hawaiian culture, um, or haven't been part of the process of the logo design, but it's okay because this is not something that will be primarily front facing. This is kind of like behind the scenes what each explicated piece of the logo means. So I think maybe eventually we'll have some of this on the website, but it's okay that you wouldn't be able to gather all of these things just by looking at the the logo. It's not the necessarily the focus. So in the logo, you can see the bowls. There's bowls and there's arrows and the peva. And the focus of the design should be that the bowls are at the top and bottom. Maybe like foodware. Okay, awesome. We can see bowls of the foodware. There is a butterfly-like design here that is a peva, and then we'll go through that the details of what this means, but just so you folks understand what's front facing. Peva are used to mend wood. If there's a crack in a wood, you put a peva there so that the crack doesn't split further. And that has a lot to do with kind of elongating the use of a specific item, just like we are elongating the use of our returnable, reusable bowls versus disposable. And then we have arrows here that refer to or kind of have a relationship to reuse. And so those are the front facing terms that hopefully folks will be able to gather. But now I'm going to share the depth of the cultural meaning. So yes, reusable bowls, but also umeke kaeo. So the bowl that you see in the brown wooden bowl here is what we call an umeke, and it's primarily used to store staple foods like poi or ulu or kalo or foods that are eaten like with every meal. So a umeke ka'eo, or a full calabash or a full bowl, is proverbially likened to a mind that is full of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. While directly related to food as a nutritional substance, these bowls, the brown wood bowls, but also the bowls in the logo, represent the restoration of ancestral knowledge, the restoration of the Ike Kupuna of the Hawaiian people, which prioritizes the sustainability of Hawaii's water, land, and natural resources. So the full bowl equals full minds, equals full capacity to address the larger issue of environmental sustainability in Hilo. So that's the kind of hidden meaning behind the bowls. And then we can go to the next slide. Then we have these arrows here. It's rare in Hawaiian tattoo or Hawaiian cultural marks that you'll see just one triangle, but you've seen it depicted on the example of the truck where there was like a lot of triangles in a line. So those often represent niho mano or shark teeth. Front facing arrow equals potential relation to reuse. Hidden meaning, arrow for Hawaii people represents the shark teeth, which represent closeness to ancestors or aumakua or family guardian. But when we're looking specifically at this application, there's a myth. There's a Hawaiian myth of Pele. In the Hawaiian myth, Pele, who is the fire goddess, she comes from a mythic land called Kahiki. And she's born in and lives in this mythic place of mythic gods. And there's a situation that happens in Kahiki, and she now must depart Kahiki. And with the support of her uncle, who is Kamohoali'i, she's led to the physical land of Hawaii. So this process is, so the shark supports Pele to go from a mythic kind of intangible space to the physical land, again, that is tangible Hawaii. So when we're looking at reuse as a large system, which will require behavioral change from the community, it's a big undertaking. It's a meaningful undertaking, but it's a large, it's a heavy lift. But the Nihomano speaks to our ability to go from this idea that Hilo can become a central hub for reuse and a model for reuse in Hawaii and also in America, because this doesn't exist on a citywide scale anywhere else. But the Nihomano represents our ability to go from environmental sustainability as a beautiful idea, similar to the mythic land, but bring it home to actuality and actualizing that into what's physically real for our natural world. And so that's the hidden meaning behind the triangles, besides just reuse. Next motif, please. Okay, so this is the peva, and this is the final motif that we'll speak to today. So the peva you can see physically in that picture of the bowl, and those are, you can see the cracks that happen, and the mends that the peva create. So the peva are used to mend the wood. When cracked or damaged, umeke were not immediately discarded and replaced, but repaired and strengthened with a butterfly-shaped mend called a peva, depicted in the logo mark. While traditional approaches to sustainability have over time been broken down, the peva symbolizes the restoration of these perspectives in caring for our natural environment through systems like reuse. So this motif that represents mending or elongating the use of our foodware also represents repairing traditional systems of environmental protection and environmental sustainability. So it's the repair of those perspectives in the community. And I think we can go to maybe the next slide. Yeah. So when we're looking at the mission statement of the brand, it says, Mao ka ho'okeo ho'i ho'i, ho'i ho ia ka mauliola ka aipono a me ka aha ai na aloha. And that means through returnable foodware, ho'i uplifts the return to true health, wholesome sustenance, and community collaborations. And next slide. The vision statement for the brand is Mauliola Ho'iho, or true wellness through return. We envision a healthy Hawaii that honors vibrant systems of return to land, return to interdependence, and return to reuse. And then we'll go to our core values in the next slide. So core values of the brand, again, this is not the branding for Zero Waste Hawaii Islands organization. This is the branding for the Ho'i brand that was created specifically to hold together the brand itself. So we have ma'e ma'e, which is the Hawaiian word for clean. Ho'i is meticulous in detail to ensure the safety, cleanliness, and effectiveness of the reuse system. Nohie, which is the Hawaiian word for simple. Ho'i's methods of checkout and return make reusable foodware simple and uncomplicated. Ho'oponopono, which is a deep Hawaiian word, but it means to repair and course correct. That can be a translation of that term. Ho'i operates with humility to course correct when needed. Kaulike, which is the Hawaiian word for justice or equality. Ho'i provides equal access to businesses and community members. Vaivai, which is a Hawaiian word for wealth. Ho'i honors the high value of natural resources, using only what is necessary, reducing waste, pollution, and greenhouse gases, conserving all else. So these are the core values. And kind of before I hand it back to maybe Selena, or maybe Autumn, I'm not sure if we're going to conclude the presentation, but I wanted to say that we have, we've spoken about Zero Waste Hawaii Island has really looked at the possibility of using this branding and kind of creating a curriculum around sustainability and environmental responsibility to share with children and family members as it relates to the Ho'i brand. So that the reusable foodware system can also come with this this education for community, education and experiences and community gatherings, so that our core values and our mission statement and our vision statement are embodied fully in the real world. And so in the beginning of our community outreach, there was a lot of conversation about how, like, Hilo Reusable Foodware, we need to start with getting our kids involved in what we're eating, and like getting our kids back on the land and back on growing their own food. And like, why is this is not where we need to start. We need to start in all these places. So the cultural relevance of the program is really related to community adaptability and the willingness that community has to engage with this. So these things go together. And I'm just really grateful to Grace and to Perpetual and to all of the folks who have been a part of this. This is really exciting for my community as a Hawaiian person, but also for the Hawaii community as a whole. And I'm so honored to be part of this. So thank you for your time, and thank you for listening to the great work that we've done as a team thus far. And thanks, Jen, also, and just everyone involved. Yeah. Next slide. Great. I don't know if this is you, Selena, or yeah, Selena.
Autumn, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to chat through the marketing collateral. And then if you want to jump in, Autumn, with an update on kind of what you all discussed and how you're moving forward based on your recent in-person kind of kickoff with Middle MGMT. So thank you, Kule. So for phase 3, really, again, this is developing the strategy, go-to-market, and collateral. So first step is defining what are those collateral needs, and again, identifying and determining who the best design partner would be. So I'll let Autumn jump in with a little bit on that front, because we were able to identify a great design partner for the collateral and kind of go forward plan. And also as part of that, you know, once identifying them, just determining the creative brief, what collateral they're developing, the specs, the quantities, etc. And also defining the messaging strategy and content going forward for the material that will be created.
Thank you, Selena.
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is kind of where we are right now. We are going to be having a official kickoff meeting with the middle management team on Friday. So we're thrilled to be working with this local organization who has great expertise in marketing and building out just really incredibly beautiful marketing materials. So we'll be working with them over the next, 6 months or so to build out this marketing strategy, as Selena mentioned, and creating that messaging for this program. Yeah, I think that's all there is to share for now. We'll have more details as we go through this process with them and get deeper into the planning stage, but really excited about where we landed